In 2004, Paul Reed Smith invited Gourmet Guitars to an intimate casual interview at his river house. We spent 2 wonderful hours with him and his son William. In this interview, we talked about PRS Guitars, Paul's life, and his big mentor, Ted McCarty. Paul was so generous to share some wonderful stories Ted had told him about the olden days. We would love to share these stories and a piece of guitar history with you. Enjoy. Ted McCarty was a pioneer of electric guitar design and production. He served as president of the Gibson Guitar Company from 1950 to 1966. At the end of the 80s, Paul Reed Smith hired McCarty as a consultant and credits his experience with McCarty as a defining moment in his company. In 1994, PRS Guitars launched the McCarty model as a tribute to Ted.
A lot of people get mentored. I've never met a rock star or a guitar maker that didn't have somebody that they said, this person helped me, this person made a difference, this person taught me. This person thought I had something when nobody else thought I had anything. So he ended up being a friend. But it was nice to be able to call and say, how'd you do that? He goes, I don't remember. Let me think, I'll call you back. And he'd call me back and tell me. Wow. I love that part of it. How important was he for my career? I think it was pretty important that he put his stamp of approval on PRS Guitars and said that these guys know what they're doing, and he stood behind it and he believed in it and he offered his name for it, and he used to come to all the trade shows, and I used to wheel him around and let him talk to everybody, and you know, the guitar makers would come out in the aisle and kneel down beside him and talk to him with real reverence. You know, there was years where he would be almost asleep, and then somebody would walk in to get him an interview, and he'd go, okay, I'm ready. And he'd wake up, and he'd do the whole thing and go right back to sleep. He was a champion. He knew how to bring himself to a moment. I think that's what a champion knows how to do, how to bring themselves to a moment. I never saw him bring himself to a moment where he didn't just handle it beautifully. That was, huh? Dominant, yeah. In a way, he was that way. He commanded, if he was here right now, we'd be talking to him, not to me. You know, he commanded real respect. His presence was something. Man, he had a lot of impact on our industry.
Enthralling.
I had a lot of questions about the way it was done. He had answers for that. Most of the things I thought the way it was done, I was pretty close. Some of the things I was way off. Well, they used to glue the fretboards on with radio glue, with wooden jigs to hold them together. You know, like in a microwave. Yeah, this stuff with microwaves has been going along for a long time. You know, they glued the frets in with fish glue. That stuff smelled terrible. I used to buy it and try it. You know, I said, "Well, what was it like when you wound the pickups?" He said, "Well, a machine went back and forth." We thought, you know, women were standing there, you know, winding them with their fingers. Who invented the word humbucking? I mean, there were so many stories. But basically, they knew what they were doing. They got all the best guitar players together every year in New York and interviewed them about what they wanted.
I was a strong believer of going to the store and hearing what the buyer, the purchaser, what he didn't like, what he did like, what he would prefer, whether it's color, shape, size, amplifiers, any complaint that he had, I wanted to hear it.
You know, at one point the Les Paul, they said it was too heavy, so they made it lighter. And that became the SG Les Paul, right? You know.
And at one point, one of the presidents asked me, he says, you know, we're having problems. I says, yes, I know you have problems. And this was during that slump. And he says, what do you think I should do about it? And I says, I think that you and your wife should get a job in a music store and wait on the customer and listen to what he had to tell you. He says, I would never be caught dead waiting on a customer. And I thought that was about the most foolish way of looking at this. And of course, I felt as though the right way would be the way I suggested it. And that is he and his wife should hear the complaint of the customer or the compliment.
All these things happen for a reason, you know. Why did they come up with the humbucking? Because the guitars were humming, and they needed something that bucked the hum, you know.
In that period of time, 1958, 59, I think it was a culmination of a lot of things with Gibson. You had the best materials, the workmanship, and all that came together at a particular time for Gibson that, you know, the guitars were wonderful guitars.
At that time, they were really paving the ground for us to be guitar makers, you know. The electric guitar started with Paul Bixby and the frying pan guitar and all that stuff, and you know, they made some of the first carved top guitars because Leo didn't have a carving machine, you know. They were trying to hide that it had a maple cap by making them gold top. Everybody says, you know, that's why they were gold top, so they hide that they had a maple top on them. Now these things are all fascinating to me, but let me tell you, they knew what they were doing. These guys were craftsmen. They knew how to do neck shape. They knew how to do fret scales. They knew how to do pickups. They knew how to do everything that would make it a good guitar, whether it be the glues or the paint. I mean, they used to heat the lacquer up in 55-gallon drums with a heating coil, and it was like molasses, and it would heat up to a consistency that was much more sprayable. And the second it hit the guitar, it would cool off and get real thick and hold on. You couldn't do that anymore. OSHA wouldn't let you stick a heating coil in a 55-gallon drum of explosive material. You know, these things have changed a little bit, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times Ted said to me, I don't think OSHA lets you do that anymore. You know, so OSHA is, you know, our regulatory commission for safety, right? Why is an ES335 an ES335? Electric Spanish guitar for $335. What's a Super 400? It's a super guitar for $400. I mean, you know, these stories dropped our jaws. It's like, you know, to have the guy at the bench who invented the word humbucking, Seth Lover was his engineer, you know. Seth worked for Ted, you know. Hey, Seth, come up with something that gets rid of this hum, will you? You know, you can see him talking now. You know, Paul, resin dripped all over the floor. It's kind of a fire hazard, but I don't think OSHA lets you do that anymore, but it worked. They were basically drying the fretboards out in an oven, and the resin used to drip out of the wood onto the floor. You know. We don't quite do it that way, but we get all the resin hard.